I'm MC for Truth, and today I'm joined by Valerie Gilbert. Hello, Valerie.
Hi, M. Nice to meet
Valerie,
you.
if you could just briefly give the viewers a bit of background on yourself. Who are you?
I am a lifelong New Yorker, a former diehard Democrat. Um, I am let's say, former performer. I've studied acting in London, actually, with Colin Firth when I was a teenager. I've written 4 books. They are nonfiction, metaphysical, political, philosophical, and I have also narrated. Uh, Over 130 audiobooks, one of which is on MK Ultra. The other is another one is on human experimentation in the United States. Government issued human experimentation. So that's the brief. And 5 years ago, I mean, I've always been opinionated as a metaphysician, as a philosopher. I'm passionate about life and spirituality. I'm not religious, but my beliefs are, ever changing, and I believe in authenticity and transparency, and very important, being a person of your word, being a person of integrity. To me, is defined as someone whose word matches their deed. It's really very simple. If you say something and you do it, you're a person of honor and integrity, and that means a lot to me. And 5 years ago, WikiLeaks shook me up. The Podesta Clinton emails. I voted Green. I became very passionate about the Green Party. I lost practically every friend I had in real life because they're all Democrats. I've gone to the best schools in New York City and Cambridge, Mass, and everyone's a liberal. Everyone is a liberal, and I find myself in my own unique world now. Most of my conservative, patriotic friends are virtual. But thank God for the internet. We found each other. So at any rate, Q was introduced to me at its outset, but I was still into the Green Party. It just didn't grab me. But it's all in the timing. And about 2.5 years ago, someone mentioned Q to me again, and a spiritual person that I like very much, actually, Magenta Pixie. She's a Brit channeler, mystic. She was actually very cautiously supporting Trump, and I was gobsmacked. I was like, "What?" Because I didn't understand who he was. I was glad he won because he irritated the Democrats so much, and they irritated. They were so mean to me just for voting Green. And to tell anyone in this country or any country you don't have the right to vote for who you want to is highly offensive to me. So, at any rate, the Q movement sort of snuck up on me, and think you come to truth in its own time. When I got full on board, when I started comprehending the comms, again, I'm a wordsmith, so like all the math and the comms and the codes was not my natural environment, but I really trust the Q information. And that being said, there's a lot of people in the Q movement. You don't trust all of them, but the Q drops themselves I find to be impeccable.
Right. Well, a few things to unpack here. First of all, you mentioned Magenta Pixie,
Yes.
someone that I'm a little bit dubious about because of her connection to Simon Parks, who is someone that I've covered, and someone that I believe pushes out a lot of false information.
Mm.
And he runs a connecting consciousness community,
Yeah.
and it's something that I'm looking into very much at the moment, but also looking into a lot of these products that he's been pushing, and a lot of the dates that he's been putting out and information he's been putting out, which I
Parks.
believe Simon Parks, yes,
Yes.
someone that I believe is not to be trusted.
Right.
That's saying that, just I've not looked too much into Magenta Pixie, but I know that she's heavily affiliated with them.
I'm not interested in Parks, and I'll just say I like her channeled messages, which are few and far between. They're very mystical. She's in a trance,
Yeah.
that, and at any rate, to that extent, that's what I like about her. I don't listen to her other messages. I listen to her channeled messages only. And it was just that on her Facebook thread, she very judiciously tiptoed because it's a hot topic. She just said Donald Trump is of the light, and I found that just a shocking statement because I did not trust him initially, but I have grown to trust him, and I've come to that on my own recognizance. That's my own decision that I came around to supporting him.
Okay, so just to be clear,
Yeah.
I just expressing that I'm dubious about that. People do your own research and obviously follow who you will. And, you know, the whole channeling situation. I'm not sure how I feel around that in general. Though, like I say, I've not really got into Magenta Pixie too much, so I won't say too much. But around the Q situation, this is something that I have also expressed my views on. Yes, you know, the Q drops, which, you know, we've stopped seeing and haven't seen this year. Since going way back now. But, you know, these Q drops are open to interpretation. Who's behind them is open to interpretation. Whether they are reliable. I mean, there has been some information that's come through them that, you know, you can see that there's clearly people of some sort of background and in the know have put some information in there. A lot of the information that's come through there has obviously already previously been leaked by things like WikiLeaks, etc.
Right.
So anyway, just to say on the Q thing, I'm again very cautious around that, and you know, I don't dismiss it. You know, I still see what's going on in that community, but there are a lot of people that are misinforming others, spreading disinformation based on the back of that, and promoting themselves on the back of
understood and agreed.
This is obviously where it becomes dangerous, misinformation and disinformation. So I just wanted to make, as you're saying all this, or, you know, we've learning your, you know, a bit about your background. I just wanted to say where I stood on those points. But what is interesting to me, and I don't really know much about this, so you can enlighten us all. You've had some brushing with one of these influencers that are pushing you know, information in these realms, which is Mel K.
Yes.
How did you learn about Mel K, and what's your relationship with her?
I did not know who she was until I live in New York City, riding down my elevator in the middle of the lockdown. And New York has been in lockdown for 2 years. It's still weird as heck, and unnatural and restrictive. And I, from day one, refused to wear a mask in my apartment building. And I have taken flack, including violent flack, from people who live in my building and are afraid for their lives. But I'm a vehement freedom lover, and refused. So I was in the elevator and with two people, and I didn't really take either of them in, but I was inspired to say, you know, in this stupid mask mandate. And the woman who was hiding behind a leopard print scarf said something to the effect about, and little St. James. And I just looked at her and I said, Q? And she said, Q. And I hugged her. I mean, I live alone. I have a very solitary life. And to find another person who was so specifically on my page was so exciting to me. So we got off the elevator and she said to me, "Are you Jewish?" Which I thought was a strange question to ask right off the bat to someone you've just met. And I said, no. At any rate, I was just, you know, I was thrilled to meet someone that cattail that I could be friends with. And I really felt that I had found a friend. I was so excited. And she said, look me up on Twitter. And, you know, we exchanged a little info. And when I looked her up on Twitter, I saw that her handle was Manic in Manhattan, which, you know, I had seen that profile. Twitter had suggested her to me previously. And I was immediately turned off by the profile because it was, I don't know if you've seen the shot, but it was a glamour shot of her leaning back with her midriff exposed, just trying to look as cool as could be. And I'm just not into the whole cool thing. I mean, our pop culture is just too focused on that whole thing of being cooler than, you know, cool and sexy. And I just find it tiresome. And I also find it very shallow.
So,
anyway,
was this Mel K?
Yes.
Sorry.
This was Mel K.
When you met her, she was wearing a scarf over her. She was
wearing a scarf, and that is what she wore the whole time.
Right. Okay.
The whole time she was always wearing it. She always had her head down, and she was always, you know, looking at her phone. So, you know, I didn't even know she lived in my building. I've lived here for decades. I grew up in this building. So At any rate, despite my trepidation about her profile, which looked full of itself to me, it was not an appealing profile. And I also noticed that most of her comments, the back and forth with people, was just her pressing the vomit emoji over and over and over again. I'm like, that's communicate. I mean, that's just childish. And what? But at any rate, I followed her because she's my new friend. And you see these things on Twitter. I know she saw it. And I also sent her a message and I said, I've seen you before, but didn't know it was you. And she didn't follow me back. And I have to tell you, you know, God is in the details. It's such a small thing. I may have had 800 followers, a very small account. She had like 6,000 at the time. And if you want to call it petty, call it petty. But I'm like, you just met another person on the same, you can't even, I'm a writer. You can't even follow me back. It was so hurtful to me. I unfollowed her, you know, I just unfollowed. I'm like, I'm not your fan. And what became clear to me over time is she's just really interested in fans, not friends. You know, she's on the up and up. She wants attention. And that's what became patently clear. Whereas I would have liked a friend. I would have liked someone that I could have talked to about these issues, about what's going on in this building, in this city, let alone in the bigger Q patriot picture.
Sure. So that's how you first met her, and obviously then, even though she's met you in real life, and you're living in the same apartment. I mean, how long ago was this?
That was about two, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. I mean, it's hard to, but at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half. And and actually, I had she and her boyfriend over. I don't remember going up or down, but I said, just come over. I was just so excited. I'd come in. They didn't want to come in. They stood by my front door for 5 minutes. And I said, well, let me know if you want to hang out sometime. So, you know, I was earnest when I said it. And I literally invited them in. They stayed 3 minutes and they're, oh, we got to go. Okay, it's a lockdown. I don't know where you're running off to. But so I don't know what makes them tick. He's a very quiet guy. You know, it's clear to me that she's very keen. She's like, watch my show. She definitely, you know, when I would have to constantly go, hello, because she was always like this, you know, I'm like, hello. We'd be in the elevator together. She wouldn't notice it was me. So her lack of awareness, and that's not a crime, you know, that anyone was there besides herself, let alone someone she knows, you know. And I think one of the most telling statements she said to me one day in our lobby as we were crossing paths, and I said, hello. And she goes, oh, I keep forgetting you live here. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're the only person that matters here. That's what just rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, I don't matter because I don't have a big following, because I'm not a celebrity, you know. And then watching her, you know, the little I did watch her, I watch very few video shows. I prefer to read things, frankly. And I find many personalities abrasive and just long-winded, and Charlie Parks was absolutely one of them. And I'm like, click.
Charlie Parks. That's a mix between Charlie Ward and Simon Parks.
Oh, yes. Them.
But you could call them the duo, exactly. Charlie Parks.
But, you know, I gave them a shot because just like people would bring her to you have to watch her. You should hook up with her. I'm like, I know her. I don't like her, you know. But when people were going, oh, you know, Simon Parks, or, oh, Charlie, I would look and I'm like, what are you saying? You're not saying anything. And I would just click off. So, you know, that's just what became clear to me. She's like, you should watch my show. And I'm like, I don't really watch many shows. And it just became clear to me that she didn't want a friend. She just wanted fans and followers, and that I was nothing. I was a big fat nothing, you know. But occasionally she would say to me, oh, my boyfriend's away for 3 weeks. This is a direct quote. And she's like, we should get together. And I said, let me know when. She even said to me, you should come on my show. And I said, let me know when. And she had my email. She had my cell phone. She had never followed up. So I'm like, this person is all talk, you know. And one of her Facebook defenders, I'm sure she fed that person what to say. Maybe she's not good with follow-up. And I'm like, you know, another word for that? You're a liar. You say things you don't mean. You are not a person of integrity. And to say them repeatedly, you know. So then another time she said to me weeks, months later, she's like, my boyfriend's back in town. We should all hang out together. And I said, when? And you know, she texted, I said, how about now? And she's like, oh, not now. Never got back to me. So I'm like, why do you say these things if you don't mean them? It's offensive to me. You know, you're leading people on.
So what do you think I mean, have you watched any of her videos? Do you know anything about her background? What do you think about the information that she's been putting out there?
Here's because I can't watch her for long. I find her voice and her aura and her energy to be incredibly grating. You know, she's ingratiating, especially, you know, she's so fawning with her. I'm so honored, you know, I'm so honored. But what baffled me was how she's so well connected. I mean, she's clearly good with words, good with facts. I don't know if they're factual, but she makes them sound that way. You know, she's got the gift of gab, you know, and she says things that sound like they're smart, and if they're true, but I'm not going to fact check stuff on Iraq. You know, I don't know what she's talking about, Kazakhstan and all this stuff. I heard from someone else, she said Palestine doesn't exist. That's hearsay. I can't confirm that, but that's an outrageous statement.
That is outrageous. I mean,
Yeah.
from what I've seen, you know, some of the information that she puts out is quite well researched, or you know, that she has gotten that information from sources that are legit. But these could be public sources, these could be news outlets,
Right.
whatever it may be. But then you know, there are other times where, you know, basically she hangs around in this this circle of this as I call it, the secondary mainstream media circus.
Yeah.
You know, this popular circle of people putting out information, and a lot of people that follow them think that they've broken free from the MSM,
Right.
and they've found where the real intel is. And you've got this, you know, this English expat living in Spain who, you know, used to do dodgy dealings with money, etc. And apparently now he's, you know, receiving top intel from you know, from overseas. You got, you know, Simon Parks, you know, another a Brit who, you know, said that he had alien parents and was on the whole sort of UFO scene before any of the, you know, the Q stuff, etc. And then all of a sudden he's you know, talking about how that he's privy to you know, secret intel, etc. I mean, you know, and she's mixing with a lot of the people that are in that same circle. You know, she has reached out to me before to say that she wanted to come on my show to talk, to set some things straight, because apparently that I had reported on her on my show, which I hadn't. I'd had people on that had talked about her, but I hadn't done. But you know, I said that's okay. But then I saw her, you know, a little while later, talking to Charlie, and Charlie was making some outrageous claims about me, and she was just nodding her head, saying, "Right," you know, as she does. And I pulled her up on that, and she was like, "Oh, you know, yes, my boyfriend tells me that I do that too much. That, you know, I say right and nod my head too much, and I need to not." And but you know, at the end of the day, when someone's slandering someone, you know, be careful what you're agreeing with. But anyway, that's besides. Let's get back to you and your relationship with her. So this was all happening. You were feeling like you were being snubbed quite a bit. You know, you're living in the same place as her. It seemed to you that she was superficial and not really following up. You know, being very much, oh, well, we should catch up, and not catching up with you. Right. Not a crime at all.
Not a crime.
No,
it's just part of the package of my impression of her is that she's unreliable. You know,
so how did things escalate from there? Because from what I know from before this, I don't know the full story, and I'm hoping you can tell us.
Yeah,
that things got quite heated.
Things got heated. Well, eventually, because this just went over time, and you know, and I just want to say at one point too, you know, she was coming in the building and she saw me. She's like, "Oh, it's you." She said, "I thought that person is brave because I wasn't wearing a mask, because I never wore a mask, and because I am brave, and I've taken flack for it for a long time." And you know, one time, wasn't even that time, another time we were waiting for the elevator together, and she said, "Look at us not wearing masks." And I really had nothing to say to her, because the one time in 2 years she wasn't wearing a mask. You want me to applaud for you? Because I do this every day, and I have to defend myself every day and my right to breathe, you know. So I just couldn't take her seriously, you know. Look at us, ooh. she invited me back on her show, and because I was getting involved in the mayoral election in New York City,
Oh,
and
back on her show. You'd already been on her show, or
no, she can't. I just
oh, yeah.
nothing she said is true. So I'm like, she's full of hot air. She's just all talk. But she said it again. Let me, come on my show, and I'm like, okay.
Right.
We did talk. Basically, I had to talk to her to get anything going. But I said, Curtis Sliwa, and she was pro Sliwa, and I had a lot to say about his opponent, who was running as a Republican, but was a clear rhino to me. And I had very specific things to say about how I had analyzed his campaign video and how his ties to the Democrat Party were so clear, from the logos. I'm very big on analyzing symbolism and logos because the cabal and the Illuminati use a lot of these things. And I'm very into that from an esoteric perspective, as well as an analytic one, just a political one. Look what they're expressing and how they're using their images to communicate. At any rate, so because of the election, I suppose, she actually agreed to have me on. And I was like, okay, when? Yet again, I was like, oh my God, are you ever going to follow through on anything? And she's like, this, or this. I picked Monday at 11 a.m. This was a good 6-8 months ago. I don't, I guess it was, it was before the election. So it was probably September, August, maybe. And she told me to be early, and I was, I'll send you the link early. I was there, nothing. It was supposed to be 11 a.m., 10:40, I'm there, nothing. At 11, I sent her an email with just a question mark, and nothing. And at 11:30, so a full 50 minutes after she was supposed to send me a link, she's like, you good? And we did the show. And so I recorded an hour with her. I talked about Sliwa. I talked about his opponent. We talked about our neighborhood a little bit without acknowledging that we live in the same building. She said that our local Whole Foods, which is 2 blocks away, now has the palm print check-in thing. I was like, wow, mind blown. It didn't occur to me until months later that that's just a lie. There is no palm print check-in thing at my Whole Foods, which I go to 2-3 times a week, but that I had forgotten that. I also shared a bit of intel because I really didn't trust her to give credit to people who shared their data. I always give credit to, I learned this from this person, because people should be known for their work. Like I said, when I share cat turd tweets, I include his name because those are his words. They're distinctly cat turd. And as a writer myself, when I come up with something, so here's an example. I saw on Facebook, probably someone had shared an anon from one of the boards, a photo of the UN with no flags up, and someone said, recent photo, can someone confirm this? I live not too far from the UN, and it was a cold day, but I said, I'm going to confirm it. So I went that day, and I took pictures. And when I posted them on Twitter, my account blew up. I think I went from 800 followers to 3,000, which is still relatively small. But for me, that was big. People really wanted to know about this. And people were just fascinated and want the UN, which is corrupt, to go down. So I was reporting on that. Now, the flags were down because of COVID. The UN closed like March 2nd, 2 years ago. So they were down for a good 2 months. And I reported when they came back up. But I'm pretty sure that Mel K saw that on my Twitter feed. She had to have looked at, because she also said to me at one point, I'm a writer like you. And I'm like, what has she written? She doesn't have a blog. I have 4 books and a blog. I mean, what has she written? I mean, we all wrote papers in college, I don't know what she meant by that, but that's a typical statement from her, I showed her an image of something and she said, I was there. And I said, Staten Island? She thought it was LA. Anyway, everything has to be glamorous for her. But at any rate, she said to me when we were taping her show, she said, oh yes, my boyfriend saw that the flags were down. So she couldn't acknowledge, and I can't prove it, she couldn't acknowledge that she had seen my Twitter posts, which were pretty frequent, documenting the situation, and then saying, okay, they're up. So I shared on her show, so she couldn't claim that she came up with it herself, because from what I can tell, she doesn't leave the house except to smoke and just sit on the stoop and look at her phone all day very nervously. She doesn't shop. They order in takeout. I mean, you see a lot. I see enough in the building to see what's going on. So I said, I saw this. I caught this. I don't think anyone had caught it before me. The U.S. Embassy to the United Nations, which is on 47th and 1st approximately, there was no picture of Biden and Harris and the Secretary of State and the U.S. ambassador to the UN for 8 months. I mean, that was big for those of us who don't believe that Biden is the legitimate president. So I shared that on her show, and I was like, well, at least I'll get credit for that. And then, she kept saying dark to light, dark to light. She was trying to get rid of me by the end. I saw her later that morning. I, again, had to say hello. And she goes, oh, I'll send you the Zoom link. And she did. And I emailed her back. I said, are you going to upload it to BitChute? Because that's where her account was. And she never got back to me. And the bottom line is she never aired my piece. So, but at that same time when she said, I'll email you the Zoom link, she also said to me, I want to do a weekly show with you called God Save New York. And she said, we should also do a walking tour, because she knows that I go out with my camera and I take photos of what's going on, like the flags down at the UN, or no photo of Biden at the US Embassy to the UN. So I have no doubt that she let that drop at one point. Oh, by the way, there's no, photos of Biden at the, it's a lot of petty stuff, but at the end of the day, it's annoying and it's a lack of integrity. And the fact
So what you're telling us is basically that she's seen a lot of the information that you've put out, and she's taken that and given you no credit for it. I wouldn't admit to you that she's taken it. She'd made a boyfriend scene or whatever. And this is something that I spoke to another lady that also said to me that she was taking a lot of what she was saying and then broadcasting it and not giving her credit. So there was a lot of, and I said this earlier, she's doing a lot of reporting on information that she get from other sources, whether it be mainstream media, whether someone else has reported on it, and she's taken that and put that out there. But you were one of these people who she was snubbing quite a lot. She got you on the show. She was taking your information and not and broadcasting it and not giving you any credit. And so you did the show with her.
I did a show. Yeah. And like I said, she immediately, when I saw her later that day, she said, I want to do a weekly show with you called God Save New York. I want to do a walking tour with you. Why say these things? Mm-hmm. So, no follow-up. And like I said, she never aired my piece. So
she never aired it?
She never aired it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm like, so she took that little bit of intel I said about the U.S. Embassy. I'm sure she took that and dropped that somewhere and didn't mention that another Anon that I know, even if you just say it's another Anon instead of going, I did it, I know it, but, so she claims to be, a know-it-all, but she's riding on the shoulders of other people. And I just find that very distasteful.
So what happened next? How did things?
What happened next was at that point I was so disgusted with her, that I'm like, and I let drop that one little bit, which was my scoop. That was my scoop. My God, there's no photo of Biden 8 months into his presidency at the embassy. That's unheard of. But it's a strong piece of evidence that something's off with the Biden presidency. So I just was disgusted. And of course, let's do that weekly show. As a matter of fact, I sent her a follow-up email saying, let's talk about Bill Barr, his father, Donald Barr, who was the headmaster of my high school where Jeffrey Epstein taught. I mean, I have a lot of things to talk about because of the schools I've gone to and the people that I know that are peripherally connected to the Epstein debacle and the Illuminati. I just find it fascinating analyzing these connections, But I just, after that, I was just disgusted with her, and she was, hey, hi, and I'm like, hi, just no follow through. I didn't ask her ever again, when are we going to do our weekly show? When are we going to do a walking tour? Because she's made herself clear. She leads people on. And to me, you're just a liar.
So how did it go from this now, where you are, perhaps not best pleased with her and her actions or inactions and her snubbing you? How did it go from that to ending up being confrontational? And what was that confrontation?
So again, just like people would say, oh, look at Charlie Ward or Simon Parks, a lot of people would send me personal messages on Facebook or tag me and say, look at her, she's great, you should connect. And it was driving me nuts. And I didn't respond to all of them, but I finally posted. I said, this is why I distrust MK. And that was my post. And then I posted the details below. So it was very private. It was a conversation, friends only, and I was discreet in what I said. But I put out a lot of things, which I said, this is proof of nothing. But I analyzed why, the leopard print motif itself. Many women are into the leopard print. I am not one of them, but it's also a part of the MK Ultra programming for the sex kitten programming. And she has a leopard print purse, and her scarf was that. And I also, because I analyzed the colors and designs and logos, her old show on YouTube, her initials were in CCP yellow and red. And I'm like, what's that about? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's absolutely nothing, but I pointed it out, That's not slander. I didn't accuse her of being in the CCP or mind controlled. Mm-hmm. I said, why that? And one of her friends responded, maybe that's from her favorite aunt. And I guarantee you, she told that person to say that back to me. I'm like, she's being fed these lines. So at any rate, that's where I posted on Facebook, private. Some things I post public, but that was private. And it was very discreetly expressed because I didn't want to cause a ruckus, but I said, I'm not into her. Okay. So just stop pushing.
You addressed your friends on Facebook.
I addressed my friends.
Friends only post. Yeah.
Friends only post. 2 of them were also friends with her. So later that night, my doorbell rang, and all of a sudden, and I said, who is it? She said, it's Melody. And she was at my door. I was holding my small dog, who you've seen. And she's like, why are you slandering me? And I'm like, what? She's like, why are you writing about me on Facebook? And you're so mean. What did I ever do to you? And I'm like, so I just stood there and I'm like, and I said, people have been pushing your work at me, and I told people what I thought. And she's like, you're slandering me. And I'm like, I'm not slandering you. I didn't confront her about the fact that she was basically spying on my private Facebook page. That's not appropriate. Nothing I said was slander. I'm entitled to my opinion. And even you're hearing me now. I'm not fond of the person. I can't prove. I don't know what makes her tick. She's well connected. She's well spoken. She's facile verbally. She's got her mystique going. She works the angles. She's a social climber. That's my opinion. She likes the attention, and she's good at working the angles. But yes, I was fed up with her. And so I expressed what I expressed. And then I said, why didn't you ever air my show? And she said, there was a problem with the audio. And I said to her, then why didn't you tell me? And that shut her up. Because if there really was a problem with the audio, we could have retaped it. We could have, I believe that was.
She would have discussed it with you. She'd have said, sorry, I'm not uploading it, whatever. I mean,
absolutely. And I asked her, are you uploading it to BitChute? And she never got back to me. Never got back to me. So, and then she said to me, you incriminated yourself in a criminal act, defacing public property on my show. And when she said that is when I started to close. I closed the door, and she shoved it forward. It's a heavy metal door. Someone just slammed theirs next to me. She was livid, shoved my door forward. Now, first of all, had it hit me in the head, could have hurt me. I had my small dog in my arms, could have killed him. I literally had to stand for a few seconds with all my might pushing against her to close my heavy metal door and get shot my two locks. I mean,
all my basically trying to break in if she's pushing your door and not letting you close it.
Absolutely. That is actually an assault. I spoke with someone. Yeah. Yes. So and also saying you incriminated yourself in a criminal. So the criminal act, let's discuss that. I am well known in the Q community as I found children's chalk in parks. I never even bought a piece, but I live near a park where there are little toddlers. And I was drawing about 2 years ago, Q. I was drawing QAnon, Q, it made me happy, And so that's what I would do. That is not defacing public property. Chalk. And if it is, those toddlers are defacing public property. So I took it a step further, and it was a bold act on my part. I actually went to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion on my bicycle with my little dog, and I drew 2 big Q's on his front doors in pale green chalk. You could barely see it, but they were there. So, and there were guards watching, and they just looked at me, but I was like, to me, it was just an act of defiance. And I am into metaphysics and energy. And I'm like, it's the mark of Zorro, of a light worker on Epstein's doors. So I did that. And I also did it on the Council of Foreign Relations, which is on 68th and Park. And I just drew Q. I drew 17. I drew 45 for Trump, That is not defacing public property, and there are people who saw me, no one stopped me. And furthermore, it's just not it's not incriminating myself in a criminal act. So that she accused me of that was appalling and frankly insane. So when it became clear to me that she's insane, because that was my conclusion, and also confronting, like, you've blown me off essentially for a year and a half, but I say one bad word about you and you're at my door. She's trying to do damage control. She's trying to control her reputation, but she's the one ruining her own reputation by how she treats people.
Sure. So she's trying to get in your door. You managed to close it.
I managed hard. Literally, I had to wedge my body against my door to hold her back because she was using all her force. And then a few minutes later, she came back, knocking on my door. And I'm like, my dog was yapping at her. And I'm like, I'm not answering my door to that crazy manic person. By the way, Kirsten had her on her show once, and she wrote at the bottom with maniac in Manhattan, which cracked me up because she is. That is my, and manic in Manhattan is nothing to be proud of either. Let's be honest. You're manic or a maniac. It's nothing to be proud of. So
she's knocking hard on your door. Did she?
On my door, persistently, like this. Yeah. And I ignored her. She did it about 2 or 3 times. I didn't breathe, except I let my dog bark, And 5 minutes later, I went downstairs. I told the doorman what happened. I wrote it in the book, in the incident book. I said, she just pushed my door in. She tried to kick my door in. And then I went right to the cops. I went to the.
So was she actually, when she was pushing the door, was she kicking it too? Or
I don't know what she used. It could have been her nose. It could have been her vagina. I don't know or care. But it was the full force of her body, to shove it. I could not close my door. It was and I'm strong. She's bigger than me, but I'm strong, but it was not easy to close my door. So that was not fun. And all because she didn't like what I had to say about her. Well, again, I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm not impressed with her, and her connections and her social climbing or whatever's going on in the name of, truth. I think it's all very self-aggrandizing. I think the truth is less important than her having a fan base. Another time we were in the elevator and she said to me, "Oh, it's so annoying now that I have sponsors." She said, "I used to just be able to look at my emails in the morning." And I felt like saying, it must be so hard being so important, but I didn't answer her. I was just taking her in for about a year, just because she was just, things are going really well. Then she had General Flynn on. I'm like, how did that happen? And then she was spreading a story on Facebook that Trump said thanks, Melody, to her at a Women for Trump event. I can't verify that. Other people, like, what is, I just didn't understand what is going on. How is she so well connected? I don't know how her machine works. So I wrote it in the book, went right to the precinct, talked to them about it. And then I learned from someone whose family members are cops. He said, that is assault. That is assault. If your ex-boyfriend tried to do that to you, you could charge them for assault, particularly if you got hurt. And, but after that, I started getting, and I immediately blocked her on my cell phone because she did have my cell phone number, which very few people do. I rarely use my cell phone. So I would say the next day or 2 days later, I got a call from a man named Stu. As a matter of fact, I have it on my phone. If you want to hear it, I have the message because it's so creepy.
Hi, Valerie. How are you? My name is Stuart. Please give me a call at your convenience. 347-922-5148. 347-922-5148. Thank you.
I don't know who Stuart is. How did he know my name? How did he get my phone number? But that creeped me out. So that was on August 9th. So that's shortly after the incident. And then so August 25th, I got same voice, different name.
Hey, Valerie.
No, different voice.
It's Tony. Can you give me a call back, please? Thank you.
That sounded like the same voice, but gruffer and lower, like they're putting on another voice, trying to get you to answer.
But who is Tony? So I don't pick up my phone. I don't pick up my phone, my landline or my cell. And then I would say about 20 to 30 calls from different, I would say probably burner phones, different numbers with no ID on them and no message, because I don't pick up. But I have no doubt it was someone on her team trying to scare, shut me up. But that's incredibly offensive, So yeah.
Well,
and then I also posted on Facebook to protect myself. I just want you to know that she tried to kick my door in, and I went to the cops. And I will call 911 next time.
Sure. And understandably, and you did actually have some contact with did you? I mean, you didn't file
with the police.
Yeah.
Ever since then, like I say, I saw her in the elevator once. I was going to walk in, but then I saw her and she just cackled. I'm sure you've heard that cackle on her show. I see her with her boyfriend slinking around. We keep our distance. We don't talk to each other anymore. But,
Well, Valerie, it's been wonderful meeting you, and it's been wonderful hearing your story, and the story about your door being nearly kicked in by Mel. It's interesting to hear, how she had reported on some of the information that you had reported on just before. And please keep yourself safe. And make sure that you're protected, and you can call the police if anything like that happens again to you. But no, it's been really great to meet you, Valerie. Thank you very much. Do you have anything to say around your work? Do you want to or where people can find you or anything like that?
I have 4 books available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Raving Violet is the name of my first book and of my blog. And
I did actually read one of your blog pieces before that you'd sent me, and it was really good. So can I put that in the description, a link to that?
Absolutely. And, the New York Times did write a piece about me last January being a QAnon person. And I got death threats after that. I got death threats at home. So, I mean, I'm just the whole thing with masks, the whole thing with Q, we've been so maligned. And to me, the bottom line is that where we go one, we go all thing means something to me, treating people with respect. The truth is really important, but treating people with respect is equally important,
Well, I mean, that's a great message. When I hear the where we go one, where we go all, I can't help but hear. There was a lady called the Great British Bird. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was threatening me and slandering me, and she said she found out my name and it was Paul. And now a lot of people that are watching, because it's not Paul, but a lot of people that watch my show keep saying, "Where we go one, we go Paul." So that's all I hear when I hear that saying now.
Listen,
but anyway, no, it's been lovely to catch up. I will leave links for you for others to
thank you. And I just want to, so exciting, Canada and the movement, the freedom movement worldwide right now. That is what is important, is individuals speaking up for their freedom and their truth and over toppling the globalists. It's a very exciting time. But respect, truth, authenticity, and honesty and kindness is of the utmost, and true patriots are behaving with honor and dignity and decency. So that's what I have to say. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you as well.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you everyone for watching the show.